Hey, I'm Todd. Thanks for choosing to watch my video, and if you would subscribe it, like it, all that stuff, that'd be great. Otherwise, enjoy the video, and I hope it gives you the information you need and is helpful to you. Take care. Alright, we're doing a 2004 Dodge Ram 1500 pickup truck, rear brake pad, rear brake rotor, rear caliper replacement on this. Got the wheel off, the like 22 millimeter lug nuts, break them loose a turn or two, and then jack up the vehicle and use safety stands, protect yourself. Plenty of good solid metal underneath here, maybe even jack underneath the differential. Use safety stands, protect yourself, and then jack it up the rest of the way. Take the lug nuts off the rest of the way, and then take the tire off. So, and what we're dealing with right now is the caliper mounting bracket, and the rotor, and the outer brake pad and inner brake pad. Got a 10 millimeter bolt here on the top for the caliper and the bottom, and a 21 millimeter bolt for the top caliper adapter bracket here, and one on the bottom. I've already broke those loose, so just note how this sits on here. So when you're taking them on and off, then of course this piece with that nubby needs to be tucked in first in this way, and then bring it down here. It might be the opposite on the other side. Let's check it out for fun while we're overviewing here. Oh, see that? So that gets set in first, and then you tip it into place. Pretty much is how it works. All right, let's take some stuff apart. Like to get in here with a screwdriver and collapse the piston. If possible, we're of course replacing this. Well, you don't know that, but the inner pad's worn out and the outer pad is pretty darn thick yet. So when it collapse the piston, helps remove things. Take these bolts out. They don't get caught on anything. Then you want to check your slides and make sure they're free, which they are. So the piston's probably not sliding right. Piston needs to move back and forth pretty freely too. Relatively freely. Nice thick pad. All right. Worn out. Metal to metal. So I'm going to get my 21 millimeter socket and take off those. To get this off, then we get the rotor off. Then you want to machine or replace the rotor. That's the right thing to do. So here we are, the passenger side rear caliper. These things just slide on and off, friction fit. You clean these up with a clean rag, emery cloth a little bit. Just clean these up. Should be pretty shiny when you're done. And then put them back on, or leave them on and clean them up, or replace them. You might get new ones like I did with your new caliper and or new brake pads. And the rotor slides off, then you can tap it with a hammer, usually on the side where the caliper was, if you need to try and get it off. Sometimes it can be sticky on here, and it'll usually come off. Here's your emergency brake shoes. Look to be in decent shape, so maybe get a little brake clean it up a little bit, and we'll get ready to throw the new rotor on. That's already basically taking your brakes apart. Not too bad. So as I've mentioned before, though, I wouldn't concern myself too much with bolt sizes, because here we have the remanufactured caliper, and these are not 10 millimeter anymore. I think they might be 12, so just have a good set of wrenches and sockets, and you'll be just fine. I'm just going to go ahead and take it apart, though. It'll probably make it easier to put together.
Bob, speak to that. And he said, don't get come in there, ask me to use the bathroom and stuff. Bob said that he kicked out of auto tech because she was worried. I said, no, he's just so strange. Oh, Napa? Yeah. Wow.
Firm fit. Don't usually have that much problem, but nice fit. And we're ready to mount this on the vehicle. Rotor just slid on. It looks like these bolts had some Loctite blue on it. I'm not sure it's necessary, but since I had some, I'm going to use it. But if you would just torque bolts down, I'm sure they'll be fine. As an example, the bleeder screw is down, facing down. That's wrong. We want the bleeder screw on the top, so this caliper belongs on the driver's side. Start all nuts and bolts by hand. Then we'll zap off the banjo bolt, it's called. It's a hollow bolt, so fluid can flow through it. We've got a new one here. So we've got a bolt, we've got a copper washer, and we'll put the line on here and then another copper washer, and we'll sandwich the line in between that. That's what's going to happen. Make sure no copper washers have stuck on this. If you're using new ones, you don't want to double them up really. And there's one stuck on here. Like to give it a little wipe down. Alright, that's replacing your rear brake caliper pads and rotors. And we'll bleed it now. Next, probably, I'll give you some torque specs. So we'll tighten those all down to spec, and then we'll do some bleeding. Okay, for the banjo bolt here, we got 20 foot-pounds of torque. For the rear caliper adapter mounting bolt, it looks like if you're doing a light duty versus a heavy duty pickup truck, the light duty is 100 foot-pounds, which I believe this is, and a heavy duty and a SRT 10 is 145 foot-pounds for the larger bolts. And then they just want apparently 11 foot-pounds for these bolts here on the caliper. And if your pickup is a 1500 or a 2500 series, the lug nut torque is 135 foot-pounds. So we're opening up the bleeder screw. We'll hopefully let gravity do the job and pull the brake fluid through. See some fluid and some air. So when I do my own bleeding, sometimes too, I have this hose in a Gatorade bottle or whatever bottle. And I put this on here. Like that. Put a little fluid in the bottom of the bottle so the hose is below fluid level, and you can step on the brakes and the fluid will go out, but when you let up on the brake pedal, it'll suck fluid back into it. Won't be sucking air. So that's one way you can bleed brakes yourself with a pretty simple setup there. Works pretty well. So it should still gravity bleed into that too. So we'll just let this sit for a while and gravity bleed, then we'll have a helper do a final bleed. I like to do that because I have people around, so we can do that. And you see we have fluid flowing, coming and going, probably little air bubbles maybe causing it to stop and go. So we can let that drip for a little while, and we'll check the master cylinder fluid level and top it off as needed. And yeah. Make sure that's under the fluid level when you're pumping the brakes, and you can probably do some pumping yourself and it'll probably be okay. You know, pump it 10 or 15 times with this under the fluid level, and then before you take it all apart, I would tighten up that bolt bleeder screw, tighten it up, and then take it all off, and you probably will be fine. Here's the master cylinder. Has a little cap, screws on and off. Not too much to it. Has a maximum and a minimum level on there. So after doing the brakes, or when you're bleeding the brakes, you want to make sure it's up here. Don't get below minimum. Just best practice. .3 brake fluid. So we'll just add some so it's up here. Then we'll bleed the brakes with the help of an assistant for our final bleeding. Got some good flow in the back, but we're just going to do a pressure bleed with an assistant. So they'll step on the brakes 3 or 4 times, hold the brake pedal down. We'll open up the bleeder. They'll feel the pedal go down some as fluid goes out, and we'll tighten the bleeder, and they can let up on the pedal, and they can pump it 3 or 4 times. And then you can open up the bleeder until you see a nice solid stream of fluid, and then you'll be done, and top off the brake fluid as needed. Okay, pump it. and pump it.
Okay.
Nice stream of fluid. And that's it. Put the cap on.